Well, we're very pleased with the result. We feel that's an excellent result considering the timing of the ballot and coming out of the COVID crisis. I think what it demonstrates clearly is that there are considerable concerns and underlying issues for our serving teachers, and pay is just one symptom of those. Our dispute really is far more wide-ranging. It's about pensions issues, workload, terms and conditions. And what it really emphasises is the need for us to sit down and talk constructively. That's what we want to do. We've
So
had
why isn't that happening then?
well, we've had lots of, press statements and announcements about we want to talk, etc. But we haven't had substantive talks that have actually materialised into anything that we can positively move forward with. And, those are planned. Apparently, next range or round of talks are planned for the autumn. There have been no talks over the summer. So we'll have to see what happens then, really. Our position is really reaffirming where our ballot is, as we said we had to do for legal reasons. And we really want to see, it's really down to the Minister and the DESC to come forward now when we get back to negotiations and really discuss all these issues. I mean, what we're also really counting on is the findings of the independent review at the end of this month. And what we want to see is whatever the outcomes are there, that they're discussed publicly, shared publicly, and that we sit down and look at how we move forward. If we compare our situation with the UK, for example, even with the pay increase as it stands, we're just matching like for like there. We have to remember that the UK is actually increasing its budget for this by 4.6% on a yearly basis moving forward. And yet on the Isle of Man, we're not increasing our budget. 1.1% of that has to be found in savings. That's also concerning for us. We feel there are really substantive issues there that really to bring education forward for the future for the Isle of Man, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. We need to find Manx solutions to Manx problems. That's what we want to see, because we have to be able to attract people here for recruitment and retention. That is a major issue across the world. So we want to put the Isle of Man in the forefront of that by sitting down and discussing all of those issues.
Well, you've explained why the money, the pay increase isn't good enough going forward beyond this year, as it were. You talk about conditions of service and workload. Can you explain exactly why that's at the moment not good enough in your opinion?
Well, we need to be looking at what's happening in other jurisdictions, and in some respects, unfortunately, the Isle of Man isn't following best practice in that. And we really need to look at the mechanisms of the interface of working with the workforce together, consulting on policies, not imposing policies, actually the interface between the professional associations and the heads and the department needs a radical uplift and change. And that's what we really need to see. At the moment, many of our teachers are feeling quite demoralised and undervalued, despite the fact that we actually worked tirelessly throughout the COVID crisis to support the vulnerable, to support online provision, etc. All of that we did during the COVID crisis, and really people want to feel that their efforts have been valued and that we look how we need to go forward in the future, because we're going to need a new plan for education in the future, because remote learning is going to be a major part of that in the future. But that has to involve all of the key players. We need to sit down and have clear strategy, provision, procedures, protocol, all of that. But we need to sit down together to discuss that.
Well, as you said, context on this is everything. We are going through a global pandemic. It's unprecedented, as we continually hear. So at this time, is the term strike action, industrial action, short of strike, is that a little bit explosive for some people that are going to be feeling very anxious at the moment, not only because of the pandemic that's been ongoing, but coming back to school now to hear that their teachers are at risk of walking out the door? Is that not a little bit worrying for people?
Well, they're not at risk of walking out the door. I mean, action short of strike action has never impinged or impacted on the delivery of the curriculum. And let's actually put the record straight on this. The Minister referred to students awaiting their results at the moment. Well, teachers prepared, again, all of those estimated grades during the COVID crisis worked tirelessly to do that, to have our young people leave school with the results that they need to continue on with their education provision, etc. So that's not a question at all that's on the table now. What's on the table now is let's get back to talking, but it has to be substantive talking. It has to actually achieve something, and we have to look at the whole education provision and how the department interacts with its workforce. That's where we are. So we don't have to proceed further with that. It is all in the department's remit now to come back and sit down with us. And then we'll see what happens when we talk, hopefully very soon in September. And then we go back to our members and we discuss. We're a democratic organisation. We are based on a democratic vote from our members. And so therefore we will not be doing anything that will jeopardise the education of the young people on the Isle of Man.